You can't poach my pilots. The Airline Pilots Association of India, ALPA India, and a member associate of the International Federation of Airline Pilots Association has alleged that Air India and IndiGo have a tacit understanding not to hire from each other. IndiGo is the largest airline in the country and Air India is the second largest, though a little behind. IndiGo has a roughly 65% market share and Air India and all its associated airlines has a roughly 29% market share. The ALPA has sent off letters to the Aviation Ministry and has said that this is unfair to pilots. Such an arrangement, if true, raises serious legal and ethical questions as it restricts the fundamental right to employment and fair competition. The letter said ALPA or ALPA India has urged the minister to ensure that employment in the aviation sector remains fair. Air India and IndiGo did not comment on queries from news agency PTI about this allegation, and an IndiGo official apparently said there was no substance in the allegations. Now, the feeling that there is a no-poach working, even if informally, has most likely been triggered by the fact that offers made to some pilots by one of the airlines in question were pulled back, and more on that shortly. Now, the larger question, of course, is how bad is the pilot shortage right now, and how is the industry preparing for it? Because remember, if there are not enough pilots, then we have a problem, or rather we could have a problem in capacity management. I reached out to Captain Sam Thomas, president of the ALPA, earlier a commercial pilot with Jet Airways and now flying general aviation. And I began by asking him what this flare-up was a reflection of.
See, we got this from actual complaints from some of our members who were in the line to be selected with IndiGo Airlines. They were from Air India. And all of a sudden, there was this letter of regret, or rather kind of signal given to them that all our hirings are on hold and we let you know as to when we can relook into your appointment. Now that's strange because the number of orders that IndiGo has got, and they should be hiring, and rightfully so, at breakneck speed. And the point that, first of all, we have no proof to substantiate that the airlines have agreed into this, have got into this agreement. And that we object to the term poaching itself. It's a HR-induced term which almost looks like an operation that is conducted by the likes of Veerapan. So why they are doing it? Because you have trained manpower available in the country and everybody should be free enough to hire somebody from competing company. And that gives much level playing field and a good opportunity for local talent.
Let me ask you the reverse question as well, Captain. A couple of years ago, there were also allegations that, let's say, by airlines like Akasa Air, that people were leaving them in droves and getting pulled or poached by Air India. So, without getting into the names in specific, but both situations have existed, right, in the past?
Yes, and they are bound to exist in every industry. Why do we see that as a bad thing? That necessarily need not be good. If the reason why people are leaving X airline and joining Y airline is because the conditions there are not suitable or not as good as what the airline that you're moving to is going to provide. Now, let's take a look at IndiGo. IndiGo is one of the best airlines to join and move forward in your career because the opportunity that they provide and the command requirements that a pilot sort of gets in IndiGo is unsurpassed anywhere in the world. It's one of the best airlines to be at that time. But now you have a physical requirement as well. What I was doing at 21, I can't do at 55. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I can go into, like I moved into corporates just to get a little bit of reprieve from that daily flying. That's the way it should be. And that's the way it has been worldwide. That is one of the world's best practices. So
Corporates, you mean private jets, for those who are listening?
Private jets, correct.
Give us a sense on the overall supply-demand situation right now, Captain. And also within that supply and demand, there is, obviously demand for, let's say, trained or senior pilots, kind of pilots, as in maybe a Boeing or an Airbus or some other kind of aircraft.
It's pretty complex metrics as far as the requirement is concerned. Primarily, we'll stick to the Airbus A320 and the Boeing 737, which are currently still the two most prominent aircraft types that the airlines use. Now, as far as the low-cost airlines are concerned, they are predominantly into Airbus A320 number-wise. And of course, there is Akasa and a few cargo airlines that are using the 737 right now, in addition to Air India Express. Now, I haven't got mind on the amalgamation of these airlines into a single entity called Air India. So, the orders that are currently in place are in excess of 1,000 airplanes. These are narrow bodies, just sticking to the narrow body. Now, that would require at least 6 sets per airplane. Like arithmetically, if you want operations to sustain. Otherwise, it's about 8 to 10 sets that gives you the proper industry standard rests. Now, in that particular scenario, so we have a shortage of about 4,500 captains from our research. And though it's a staggered requirement, you have no option at the moment but to bring in expatriate talent, which in itself is another big issue, both for the expatriates as well as for the Indian nationals. And just to be on record, we are the only country that pays the expatriate pilot more than what a national pilot were to earn with this exact same experience. So there is a shortage, and that's going to be a shortage in the long term if we do not take action right now at grassroots level. So stopgap arrangement can be done with the expatriate induction, but otherwise it's going to be a perennial shortage.
Right. And what do you see happening because of this in the medium term? I know long term things could get sorted or maybe not sorted, but in the short to medium term, what's the impact of this shortage? And does that link in any way to the issue that you've raised about this poaching or attempted poaching or no poach agreements, rather?
Time to time in the aviation industry in India, there has been this tacit arrangement of no poaching. Now, that is only up to a point when your senior management puts pressure. And we had that in Jet Airways. Now, we said we will not take from Sahara, we will not take from Kingfisher, they are our friends and all that. But when our aircraft started landing up and they were being parked on the tarmac for want of crew, all these arrangements, from my experience, will be thrown to the winds, and we will do anything, including what we did is pay in excess of 15 lakhs as joining bonus, which IndiGo did as well. And that is the way it works in the medium term. And also, like I said, a big part of it is going to be expatriate inductions. And that will continue till such time that, we have our own manpower, which I don't see happening unless we do some major changes at the grassroots level, right from the flying club levels, right from the institution, the FTOs, from there, and DGCA having to undergo a major overhaul in their thought process, including the Ministry of Civil Aviation, that does not categorize us as something that is a need for the country, but still seen as elitist.
Just to pick up one quick point. So, the grassroots level, since we're talking about a supply line which only takes a few years to fill, assuming someone joins Flying Club today, I mean, it should take a few years and then that person should reach at least trainee pilot level. What is the one thing that we should do to improve supply in India?
Firstly, we'll have to look at it as something that is necessary for a developing country. We somehow still categorize that as elitist, and we do not have any enabling regulations in place. We have an Indian Aircraft Act 1937. We keep throwing it at every person who even wants to join. Let me give you a very simple example. If a trainee were to join or make up his mind to become a pilot today, he has to apply for something called a computer number. Now, that takes him about 3-4 months. On paper, we have lovely regulations, but it simply cannot be enforced, and there is nobody who is accountable.
Got it. Captain, thank you so much for joining me.
Most welcome.